Yeah, I just keep it steady on the magic. Do my thing, I'm healing, it's fantastic. If I fall, rise automatic. You ain't no now, you know. On the one, raise myself like a tree from the roots. West side girl, cause she lit in the coast. East side girl, when she speaks to the roots. Stay 100, cause she on with the truth. Been there on struggle, know that it pass. Only going up, yeah, the pain don't last. Ooh, take off. Ooh, take off. Ooh, take off. This is take off, take off, take off. Shorty like Brandy, fight like Monica. What you know about her? Baby girl rising, way to the top. Shaking the world, don't expect her to stop. Purpose so great, she get what she got. Follow her step, cause she following God. What you need more, got a heart full of gold. Even at times when it's raining and cold. Ooh, she bout take off. Ooh, she bout.
What up, what up, what up, y'all? It's your girl Hannah, aka Rootside, and you are watching the Uprooted Network. And y'all know today is Black Men Speak Sundays. I don't know if it's your favorite, but it might become your favorite because today I have the one and only Hayelom in the building. What's up, my guy? How are you doing?
Half day. By the way, I love your intro.
Thank
It
you.
is so cool. Well done. Yeah, happy to be here and really thank you for this opportunity to be with you and to all those who are listening and supporting and sharing and making
Yes,
sure others are also joining this platform. Thank you for listening to us as well.
yes. I was like, you queued it up. I was like, make sure you doing all that. Share, like, subscribe, all the good stuff. Y'all, we are in for a treat. Those of you who don't know, you guys, you should know. Hayalum is he's somebody you need to know. Definitely has been out there in the community putting in work for years now. Like I don't know how many. I'll let you talk about those. But most of you guys might know him from our favorites, okay? Our favorite organization, Tegaru Professional Network. But even before that, I'm sure there's plenty of other things I'm learning about you even now. So if you want to tell the people who you are, what you're repping.
Yes. Well, thank you for that. You're very kind. I'm just another person in this world, just like everybody else, figuring it out and finding spaces where I can influence and make a change and have an impact, positive impact that can be felt by so many others. So, a little bit about me. I am a father of two amazing kids, Helix and Omni. They're super young, 5 and 3,
Oh,
and a husband to an amazing, incredible wife, Olga, and a son to an incredible, inspiring, and powerful mother, Almaz Gabramedin. If you
oh,
haven't heard about her story, they did a Good Morning America for her, I believe, in 2010, Mother
oh,
of the Year. So if you've heard about it, that's my mom,
I
who's
didn't
really
even remember. I remember the story. I didn't know she was your mom. Oh,
yeah,
that's dope.
that's if we all think about who inspires us, who allows us to reach new heights, oftentimes we look at athletes and movie stars, which is fine because they have an incredible path that we should also follow and aspire to. But for me, it's always been a proximity. Who is the closest person that I could touch, feel, and that's going to inspire me to
Yes,
do greater things? And my mother was that person for me. She was a rock. She was a star that we always looked and chased after. So,
that's
and we
amazing.
still do to this day.
Yes.
So yes, so and I have some siblings as well doing incredible things. I have older younger brother and three younger sisters. And from professional perspective, I work at Iron Mountain, which is an information management company, and currently I serve as the vice president of enterprise technology. And we could talk more about what that means, how long
Yeah.
it took to get there. It's been an amazing, incredible 14 and a half, 15-year journey with the
Oh,
company. So there's
okay.
so much we can unwind and peel from.
Yeah.
And then the other is really around what I call giving back. And
Mhm.
I feel like, a lot of times we are very fortunate to be where we are today, especially those of us who are benefiting from the hard work and effort, sweat, tears, blood that our parents had to sacrifice for us to be where we are today. So for all
Yes.
the you Tagaros who are born here or who came in at a young age, you should thank your parents because we're in a position now where we can reach new heights. but
Mhm.
also be in a position to give back. And so, in the giving back identity of mine, I served the Ethiopian community in the past, of course, served now fully the Tigrayan community. Here in Atlanta is where we started with TCA, Tigray Community of Atlanta, which then morphed into TPN, which we could talk about more. And then also, I serve with Tigray Communities Forum of North America on the board right, today, currently. And also, finally, I serve with Clayton County Public School System, which
Mhm.
serves about 55, 60,000 school students, pre-K to 12. And the foundation is just doing amazing work, and it supports roughly 80 to 90% Black and Hispanic students.
Man, some people are gonna be like, "Wow, that's so impressive!" Like, right, like they, because I'm over here like before we started recording, I was like, "Yeah, you do a lot." Like, that's a lot of work. Because two kids, let's just go back, right? Two kids under 5. That's a lot of people to chase around. Like, I know they got energy for days. So
Yeah,
that's a
they do.
full-time job alone, let alone your actual full-time job, let alone the civic engagement that you're doing, in the public service that you're doing, right? So I am like, wow, that's a lot. And so for anyone watching, because sometimes I have younger audience and we're always wanting to speak to the youth, right? It's like, how do you manage that? How do you, balance that out? Because I'm pretty sure that wasn't an overnight journey. You don't just jump into, let me take on all these roles and wear all these different hats, right?
You're spot on. I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it and say it's easy, right?
Mhm,
Sometimes we have this tendency to be that superhero
mhm,
and be very protective of our youth and so on. It's not easy, but what's the measure is not the difficulty of actually doing it. It's
mhm,
the benefit and the output and the legacy that you are developing and building on.
mhm,
That's what is motivating. But yes, it's definitely a challenge. And what my wife and I always talk about, and I have many mentors that I also leverage and help
mhm,
me kind of find the balance, which is something I want to make sure the audience understands. You don't
mhm.
have to know everything. You need to seek guidance, mentorship. There are people who have traveled the path that you want to go towards.
Yeah.
Find who they are. And so for me, is I try to make sure I have a circle of mentors that can guide me in different aspects. But
Mhm,
the way I try to find balance is there's a time for everything. There's a time for kids, which I'm still learning because they're young and I'm developing in that area. There's a
mhm,
time for family. There's a time for work. And there's a time for your own personal space for your growth, for your learning, for your enjoyment. And
mhm,
there's also a time and place for your spiritual foundation. And then there's a time and place for your time to give back to
mhm,
the community that you are looking to provide some kind of benefit from. So for me, I tried to do the best that I can to time box when I am doing each of these activities. And
mm,
that kind of helps me really try to separate as much as possible. Now, there are times where they do collide a bit, but it's understanding what your values are, what is important to you, what matters the most. And once you have that defined, you will know which time box you're going to spend most of your time and effort in.
yes. Oh, I've been doing that on my calendar and just moving things around, like, "You know what? Let's try this. This seems like it needs more attention than this area, and
Yeah.
this area is like, I can get back to it," right? So you're constantly, moving things around, especially as like needs change, right? You're like,
Exactly.
oh, okay. No, you're acting out. Like, like, wait a minute, you throwing a tantrum? I'm clearly needing to spend a little bit more time with you today, right? And maybe you have to rearrange. And I think the key in what you were saying is like the flexibility, right? To understand what your life is really looking like, what that makeup looks like, and then prioritize too, like what's important based off of your values.
Exactly.
Okay, okay, we like that. I hope they wrote that gem down. I tell people around these parts, if you're on the Uprooted Network, you're here, you're gonna definitely get entertained, but make sure that you are taking notes because these are people who are doing it, who are a little further in their journey. So make sure write those gems down, y'all. Because I do it too, and it's phenomenal. So it changes up a lot. If you can manage your calendar, you can manage a whole lot of things. So that's super dope. You touched on a couple of really key things, and I think it ties into uh, Tegaru Professionals Network, right? And kind of the roles you're playing even on a school board, you know what I mean? And just with your civic engagement, this whole theme seems to be centered around mentorship, right? And making sure that you're raising, the next generation essentially. So talk about how you got into that role and that finding that passion for yourself.
Absolutely. I think one of the main reasons that myself and a few others, it's obviously I'm just one of many people who are doing this. So if we think about, let's say, very specifically TPN, you had who is our rock, and both of us have recently stepped down from a chair's position. But Mibrat was a core tenant and an element of making this possible. You have Aksum, who is also a critical component of this. Dr. Sagat,
Mm-hmm.
you have Sanai, Sagere. So when we think about who really started TPN, that's where it came from. I want to make sure we are highlighting and giving them their flowers now, right? Before, it's too late. And also Mr. Mulugeta was a critical component of why I got involved in the
Mm-hmm.
Tigray community, especially within TPN. But specifically focusing on when we came together, what drove us? What was the fire that lit that says we have to do this now? All of us grew up in an environment where we felt like our community could have done a little bit more for the children.
Mm-hmm.
And what we learned over time is it's not because they didn't want to do it. They did what they could and what they knew what to do, which is really creating community centers and bringing us to a common place, trying to get us to think about common goals and things that we need to focus on for our community.
Yep.
We quickly realized it was more of a skills gap and an understanding gap, not because it was a lack of desire. And
Mm-hmm.
so we started to do some investigation and some research. So, the three or four of us would join the Tigray community of Atlanta and really start to survey, like, what are the programs that exist here? What are
Mm-hmm.
the things that are working well? What are opportunities we can step in? And we quickly realized we don't have, as a community, and this was across North America, we don't have a place or a dedicated foundation that focuses on, professional personal development,
Mm-hmm.
that focuses on the importance of social and civic engagement, that focuses on mentorship and networking, and then what it means to be a decade Tigray. Like, what is our identity from the lens of the youth? How do we understand it? By getting information from our, professors and our community leaders. And so it really came from a desire because we didn't have that ourselves growing up.
Yeah.
And we learned as we aged the power of somebody who has traveled the path giving you information. So when I started to get that myself personally over time from the various mentors that I've had, I
Mm-hmm.
started to realize they're teaching me things that is 10 years, 20 years ahead of where I need to be. Now I have this because what really separates good from great, or what separates, whether you're an individual contributor in a company, or you're a supervisor manager, or if you're a director, VP, or CEO, it doesn't matter. What separates any one of those roles is access to information and knowledge.
That
And
part.
the faster we can provide access to information and knowledge, especially at a younger age, the faster that we're going to realize. So there's going to be a higher compounding like benefit
Yeah.
on the return. And so we said, okay, we're a certain age group. We know what we lacked when we were teens and going through high school, going through college, and then early in our professional career.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we create an organization that provides access to this type of information very early on? Like, one of the first program we facilitated, which is a cornerstone and it's being developed further and further now, is financial literacy. When do you learn about financial literacy? Is it before you get the money,
All
when
right.
you get the money, or like, wow, right? And so many of us are in different spectrums. So we realize the power of that, about career paths and what it means. How do you prepare for it? How do you do the right research, the due diligence?
Yeah.
We started to do things around very specific sectors like vocational skills, like coding and programming. So we started like a coding program to center around that, because the earlier the youth engage in this, the
Yep.
dream kind of changes, right? Because if you think about when you were younger, the things you were dreaming about was all predicated on what was around you, right? What you were watching on TV or who you were aspiring to. But you were dreaming with very little information, right? And so
Oh,
the
oh,
more
that's good.
information we give you, then your dreams kind of expand and grow, and they have the opportunity to go beyond what you imagined within your own circle. And so that's why we started to inject some of this information very early on. So for example, when we shared with them before we even did the coding program, here's the tech sector, here are
Mhm.
the different types of jobs that are available, and here's the average salary, like a project manager, a program manager, a product owner. You don't even have to be a coder or a software engineer or a software architect. A lot of them are six figures, but that's not known for the vast majority. If you have enough experience, or
Yeah.
even like coming straight out of college, you're making really, really good money, like 70, 80K, if not more. But when you're a few years into it, then you can be in the six figures. Like that's
Yeah.
insane that our people just didn't have this information. Now that you see that and they can match their skills to those types of positions that are available or career paths, now you're creating not only the right level of access to information, the networking, and the
Mhm.
peer-to-peer mentorship or peer to someone who is very experienced mentorship, but now you're also creating economic wealth because now our people, our teams, or our the people that we're serving are going into sectors that are paying significantly more. And then
Yep.
when you teach them financial literacy, how to invest in yourself, how to invest in different financial portfolios, how to mitigate or reduce debt or pay off your debts and give back to your community certain percentages of your income, now
Yep.
you have a really great way to have the dollar circulation in a much healthy ecosystem.
Man, you might as well just throw the everything else away, because if you could get that, if they can understand that, then our community is going to skyrocket, right? Because what you're saying is we're pretty much laying the foundation for the next generation to skip this whole like survival that we had to go through, right? Like I always say that with generations, it's like our parents survived, our job is to thrive, right? And our job too is to make sure that the next generation also does that. They can skip the survival chapter, right? We can teach them those skills. They don't have to learn it through experience, is how I like to envision that. And so those are really key, is how do you navigate this world? Because I said it, and so if anyone's watching this series, right, like I would tell him, like, there is so much that we're able to do, but it's so overwhelming. You know what I mean? Like I liken it to, you will understand this because you're a father. So when you go to the grocery store and your wife is like, pick up the cheese, or like, I need you to get this, and you're looking at that aisle and there's 100 different brands, and you're like, which one did you need? Like what like what do you want specifically? How
Yeah.
much do you want? And you got to call them because you're not sure.
Yes.
That's how I feel like the career market is, because you go in there and you're like, and we always joke about this doctor, lawyer, engineer thing that our parents like to push, right? I also threw in firefighter as a kid, which was really random, but I was just very determined. And I kid you not, you think of that, and I like what you said. You said you're only dreaming with the information you have. And by giving you more, you can dream more. And so now you're looking at all of these options, and instead of being overwhelmed, it's like, oh, I want to try that one, and I want to try that one, and I can like mix up some stuff here, and I actually have skills. And it's like, okay, I feel comfortable because I know that I don't have to just fit into one box, that I'm able to move around if I need to, and that my skills are transferable. Like I always like to emphasize that your skills are transferable. Do you think that I thought I was going to be doing this? No. This was not the goal, but it's where I'm at, and I love it, and I appreciate it. And sometimes you just fall into the thing that you love, right? So I wonder for you, even, because that's your civic engagement, and you didn't just know this information, right? Like you learned it along the path. So I'm wondering, in your own personal journey to getting to this point, whether it was mentors in, I don't know, elementary, middle, college, whatever it is, how did you get to this? Because you're speaking a lot of truth. You might, I maybe want to be a motivational speaker. I don't know if I'm planting a seed. And just how did you get here? Because it's not easy to figure all this stuff out, right?
Yeah. By the way, I have to Hannah, I love what you said,
Hmm.
survive versus thrive. I think that's a really good way of, understanding what our parents did
Hmm.
versus the position that we are in. Now
Yep.
we are in the thrive and grow, right? Versus I really love, I'm glad that you said that.
Hmm.
In terms of how I got here. I mean, there are many reasons, so many people
Yeah.
who have really, really invested in me and helped me get to this point. So I didn't get here alone. And I don't think any one of us, first of all, we don't even enter into this world alone. So the fact that we think we can make it alone is laughable to me. That's just my personal philosophy, is
Yes.
that, somebody's always given us something along the way. It's up to us whether we're listening, whether we're receptive, or if our heart is open enough to receive it at that time or not. Those are just circumstances, that define it. But overall, I got here because so many people cared about me, which is why I'm so passionate about doing the same thing in paying back and paying it forward. So I could talk either the career paths of how I got here, or the civic or social engagement, Hannah. I mean, it depends which
Yeah.
one you want me to do.
Let's go career, because I feel like
Career.
your career played a lot into understanding all of the knowledge you just dropped, right? Like understanding the field of applying, right? Because I feel like that's a job too. Like applying to jobs is a job. It's really a scam. But
It's so
go
funny.
ahead.
All right, so this goes way back. So I graduated from Penn State University
Hmm.
with a finance and management degree. So, growing up, I was like, I want to be, a finance manager, or I want to, something in investment or to that for, or I would just want to be in an organization where I'm managing teams or leading teams. Because my career started very early. I think my first job was like at the age of 12. Because I've always had this hunger to do something and to help the family in any capacity I can, because knowing
Yeah.
what my mother had to do.
Yeah.
But after graduating college, I had a decision to make. And
Hmm.
I want all the young people to realize this. If you're at this age, you can take all the risk you want. Okay. Right now, you are afforded the biggest opportunity to take a risk, because if you're young and you don't have a family yet, you don't have a career that's already established, this is the time for you to test and
Hmm.
gauge what you like. Because as you age, and as you have more responsibilities, it becomes really difficult to take those risks, right? So
Yep.
at this point in my career, or where I am, I don't have the luxury to say, you know what, I'm going to try something else. It's just that much harder. But when you're younger, you can. So I grew up in Erie, PA, and once I finished college, I realized that in that market there weren't many jobs available. Like, I
Hmm.
had very little outlets. So I decided to say, you know what, I'm going to take a risk. I have some family in Atlanta. I'm going to move to Atlanta and try out different sectors. It's a big city, way bigger than Erie, PA. And
Hmm.
so I joined. I did a few small jobs for the first like year of being here, and then I joined a company called Recall. So that's where my real corporate experience started.
Hmm.
And I started as an inside sales executive, which just means there are customers who are interested in, wanting to procure our services. So I
Yeah.
was the person, I was either picking up the call and say, hey, if you guys have ever called any
Yep.
sales, Comcast, doesn't matter, you call their sales center.
Oh, yes.
So that's what I was doing when I started. But something hit me at that time. I was doing some research. And one of the things that I found out, and this is still kind of true to this day, is that only about 25% of those who graduate with a very specific degree
Hmm.
stick in the sector. These are like very specialized. The rest of us, including myself, and maybe the 75% of you who are listening,
Yep.
we kind of knew what we wanted to do, but we weren't exactly sure where we were going. Right. So the 75%, that audience, I want you to know that it's okay if you don't know. Whether you are early in your career or still in school, if you don't know, it's totally fine. You will figure it out once you tap into, once you get your first internship or you get your first job or what have you.
Hmm.
So when I started to realize that, I made a decision after I joined the company after about a year or so. The decision that I made is I want to know how corporate America works,
Oh, okay.
because if I look at the structure, there are so many different organizations, there are so many different functions, groups, there are so many different hierarchies, so many different specialties. So early in my career, talking to different mentors, I said, I want to learn the company. And the way I'm going to learn the company is by taking different positions every so often.
Yeah.
So I got an opportunity to be in sales. Then I got an opportunity to be in customer care. Got an opportunity to be in the billing side of the organization. Then I joined sales leadership, where I managed multiple sales teams, sales organizations, and then a little bit of finance. Then I went into Lean Six Sigma, process improvement, project management.
Hmm.
That at that point, I got an opportunity to connect to the senior leaders of the organization, because as a Lean Six Sigma black belt, and we could talk more about what that means,
Yeah.
which actually is really great certification to get. I was a liaison to our, you know, vice president of sales,
Oh,
of operations, and our general manager, our legal, our marketing organization, and so on. So now I was managing different programs and initiatives for them, uh,
yeah.
strategic programs. So then I got to learn about what each of these functions do. And then eventually I got into program management and joining the technology team, IT organization. And I've had, several progressive roles from there, like leading our like quality QA testing for any new software that we develop. We have to test it before we can deploy it. So my team managed the testing. And then I end up managing an entire platform, our CRM platforms, our billing platforms, and then eventually that plus our security as well as our M&A,
Yeah.
all the integrations that take place after we acquire a company, purchase a company in essence.
Yeah.
So for me, it was all about navigating the corporate structure. And so what I've learned is that depending on what you want, okay,
Yep.
so if you're very early in your career right now, and let's say you are somebody that likes to help people, that wants to train and grow people, guess what? There's an entire HR sector that exists in corporate America right now. And just
Yep.
within HR alone, you can do diversity and inclusion, you can do communication, you can do talent management, you can do
Mhm.
talent acquisition, and or you can do any levels of that. You can be a business analyst. So it's like, and that's just within HR. Um, or if you like somebody that likes to interact with people, like close deals, or you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you can go into sales. And there are so many different positions in
There's a
sales,
million sales jobs.
millions of them. And it's not even just sales in terms of even if you don't like interacting with customers, but you like to do the data analysis or you want to come up with strategies. There's like sales enablement, sales operations. It's
Hmm.
just insane. And then same thing with tech. There's product management, and you don't have to be a coder to go into tech. By the way, that's what I thought. That was my assumption.
Yep.
There are individuals who fit in the development side that are coders, engineers, software architects, and so on. There's another side of house, which is the strategy side of IT, the
Mhm.
program management office, or business analysts, or product owners, product managers. And by the way, most of these positions pay six figures,
Yep.
like most of these, as we talked about earlier. So it's incredible, the landscape. Then there's finance, then there's operations, there is legal, there's market. So there's so many different parts
Yeah.
of corporate America where you really have an open space. So it's all about finding what you're good at and either converting it into an entrepreneur. You can open up your own organization, kind of like what you're doing right now. You have a passion that you're interested in, and you have your own corporate entity, right?
Yep.
Um, you can be a nonprofit if you're passionate about certain fields. Now, the challenge oftentimes with deciding between a career that pays really, really well, whether it's a corporate sector or sometimes it could be entrepreneurship, versus nonprofit, is the pay scale. The
Yep.
pays, the benefits are sometimes a little bit better, but the pay is kind of lopsided a bit, if you will. So my sister is in a nonprofit organization, and she knows, she loves it. She's doing really well, but she knows she can make a whole lot more if she was to go into the private sector.
Oh, absolutely.
But for you, is you have to have the trade-off. If you value money, but you also have a very specific passion that you want to go after, know this: even if you sacrifice some pay right now, the nonprofits or some of the government positions that exist out there, they have really good pension plans, which means you have the opportunity to retire a whole lot earlier and
Hmm.
live a balanced life after like 20, 25 years of service, which takes a lot longer to do in corporate America. Corporate America is, it pays you well, you have your 401k and so on.
Oh, but
So
they're gonna suck you dry. They're gonna make sure that you
yeah,
earn
you earn
every
that,
one of
especially
those.
salary.
Yes.
So sometimes, I mean, I have like 80-hour weeks. So it's insane sometimes if you're on salary versus an hourly pay.
Mhm.
But learn about what are the trade-offs. So if you are passionate and you want to go into a government sector that is providing services that you deeply are passionate and care about, or a nonprofit organization, but you know you want some financial stability, there are some combinations of things you could do. Either A, you can start in corporate America, gain the financial stability and the peace of mind you want, and then go into your passion. Because now you have less baggage and less things to worry about, and you have the freedom to kind of select one way or the other.
Yep.
Or if you have or if you feel like you have to have that passion, but you need something else, find a way to generate passive income. There are a lot of positions right now that can allow you to do customer service from home. Or you can open up your own organization, your own consulting, or if there's a very specific skill set that you have that you can offer, you can create some side hustles, they call it. Or in my mind, those are just different vehicles for you to earn money and diversify yourself in your portfolio. So
Yeah.
there are different things that you can do. Don't feel like, it's one or the other. It's just a trade-off. Like what trade-off do you want? What's going to give you the most value and allow you to build your own self-confidence?
Yeah.
So hopefully that kind of answers your question as far as how I got to where I got into in my corporate
No, you
experience. But I've been
laid it
very fortunate,
out.
and I've had many leaders. So I'll give you I don't have to name names, but there was one vice president who said, "Anytime you need anything, Hylam, knock on my door."
Yep. And
That
you
was
know.
my first lesson, and I said, "Okay, let me try this out." I don't know
Yeah.
if I would have done it before. I said, "You know what? I'm gonna knock." I knocked. Ever
Okay.
since that knock, it has opened so many. So that person who asked me to do that coached me on how to negotiate my salary, coached me
Ooh.
on how to negotiate my title, coached me on how to decide title versus salary,
Hmm.
and coached me about how to prepare for the next position, knowing where you are today and planning ahead. But there were so many others. Once that door got open, then I went to a different VP. Okay, what else can I get from this person? And so that was another factor of how I've gotten to the roles that I'm in. If you think about where I've gotten from when I was in, let's say, inside sales, then eventually leading an entire sales organization, I think it was like 5 or 6 different teams, is
Yeah.
because one of my mentors was head of sales. And he got to understand who I am. And
Eh,
what I learned from that experience is it doesn't matter how talented you are, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it's about connections. That's
mhm.
all life in corporate America is. It's just all about connections. Who do you know and the timing of when you know that person? And
That
so
part.
when I started to get connected to some of these senior leaders, when a position came up, whether I got it or not was irrelevant, is
Hmm.
I was considered because I was in their mind,
Yep.
right? So I was thought about for those positions. So those network, not only did they help me gain some life skills and how to grow as a person, but it also opened up new opportunities. So for all of you who are early in your career, any executive, for the most part, will open their doors. So you have to have the gumption and the fortitude to say, I'm just going to knock, whether they ask me to or not.
Hmm.
And when they finally do ask you that, take them up on it. Because typically they won't say that unless they're very sincere about it, at least those who I've worked around. So those are some of the things that also shaped my growth and my path to where I am today. So networking is a big component. And oftentimes we confuse networking because I grew up in an affluent or well-connected
Hmm.
versus your ability to do that. If you are in a corporation of 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 10,000, 500, it doesn't matter what size they come in different um, size of the organization, but there are enough people there where you can build your own network. And if you can combine skills, education, experience, and network, it's going to be a much easier path. And it's never easy, but it will be an easier path for you to get to the level that you want to be at.
Yes. No, you pretty much just gave them the HR like cheat sheet. I have taken HR classes as part of my minor, and I teach this to people all the time. They're like, "How do you do what you do?" I was like, "There's also a reason why I switched it to network, right? Like it's Uprooted Network because I want people to understand you have access to these people too. I'm sharing all these amazing, dope people that are in proximity to you because I feel like oftentimes we don't look up, you know?
Mm.
Like we're trying to reach so far ahead of us that it feels impossible, you know? Like, no, you're not going to go talk to Steve Harvey and Bill Gates and figure out how they became as rich as they became. But I can reach out to you, and you're like on the right path, right? So like at least I know, hey, you're a lot closer to where I am than than these other people. And so it's much easier to take those smaller steps, get a little bit more confident, and then take those bigger leaps, right? And so I'm always like, yeah, reach right here. There's really dope people around you that have tons of knowledge, right? And that's really what the point of this platform is yo, they're on the show, they're giving you their handles, they're giving you ways to contact them, go follow them, reach out to them, like they're making themselves available for a reason, right? So I think that was dope. I think you said something about knocking on the door, and like, that joke came in my head. It was like, you hear me knocking? Let me in. And like,
Yes.
and you got to have that mentality, right? Like, you don't, what is it? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yes.
So I'm always like that. Y'all talking about Kobe, you're talking about all these things. You know how many shots he took before he got onto the field? And like, you know what I mean? Or the court. Let me not mess up my sports analogies here. Um, you really got to put in that work. You got to put yourself out there, and it's
Yes.
what you're saying is so important. It does not matter, because when you're stressed, right? And this is why I tell people this works. When you're the boss and you're stressed and you have 80 million things on your mind, your brain is going to go to, who do I know that can help and get this done right away? You're
Mm.
not trying to sift through 100 resumes. You're not trying to have to spend 20 hours trying to find that person. If there's someone that you know that you trust, right, that has shown up, right, that has shown you those characteristics, and is teachable, right? You always need to be teachable. Then
Mhm.
you're going to be a much better option for them, because they don't want to reach that far. They don't have that much time and energy to expend on that.
Yeah.
So that's why I tell people networking is really, really key. You will get into rooms that you also don't feel like you deserve to be in, right? That you might be a little bit intimidated by. So I wanted to kind of lean into that with you, of like, where maybe you struggled on those journeys, or taking those positions, and trying, because I thought that was really fantastic what you were saying about coming into that corporate sector, and really wanting to understand it by trying, right? Like, by trying all these different things. But that means you put yourself in a lot of new positions, right?
Mhm.
That means that you had to transition and change everything that you knew, or everything that you thought, and be willing to be wrong, right? And be willing to maybe fail. So what was that kind of mental process, or how did you kind of get through any struggles that you can think of?
That's such a deep question. By the way, I like what you said. Oftentimes we don't look up. That is such a beautiful quote, and I think it's deep, and hopefully people understand how profound that statement is, and hope they get to think about that and let it sink in.
Mm-hmm.
So on both sides, whether it was personally as a parent, as a son, I mean, in everything that we've done, I think we have points where we don't succeed,
Yeah.
or we don't attain what we aspire or what we wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
or we didn't get the outcome that we were expecting. And I've had, failures and setback in the nonprofit and in the service side. So TPN or the forum or or when we started actually um, the Northbridge investment company,
Mm-hmm.
when Northbridge Connect, is there were many other life lessons along the way. So like our first nonprofit organization that myself and a few other friends
Mm-hmm.
started was probably 10 years before TPN started, where we all had this very specific passion, but it only went so far. Right? We accomplished some goals, but we didn't get everything we wanted, and we had to dissolve. But there were a lot of things we learned from that. I didn't just, you know, sit in my chair and try to like beat my head or beat myself, trying to figure out why didn't we succeed. What I wanted to learn is, what did we learn from this experience?
Mm-hmm.
What did we get from here that we're going to take to the next organization, whether we're together or individuals doing supporting different organizations, and how are we going to add value to that? So took some pieces, some things that we've learned, whether it was the organizational structure, whether how we communicated, did we have the right vision or mission, did we have the right scope, was it too big, should we have consolidated a little more, things like that, right? Did we engage the community in such a way where the youth, the parents, the community leaders, and the religious leaders were connected?
Yeah.
Okay, you miss one of the like things like that we just picked up. At least that's what I focus on is, what have I learned from this experience?
Mm-hmm.
It's not about whether failure or success, it's not good or bad, right? Because we make choices and then there are consequences or outcomes, whether we like them or not.
Yep.
The way I always think about now is, how do I respond to it? And I always want to learn from that experience and build on it. So we took that. I worked on a few other nonprofit organizations, built the experience from that, went to the next, and so on. And then when we eventually got to the TPNs of the world or others, we all came with shared experiences, things that we've learned and equipped and got better, and kind of like, areas where we sharpened, where we knew we were a bit dull. And when you have that come together, then you can build an organization based on those learnings. So for me, that's exactly what I applied in the service side, and
Mhm.
same thing in the corporate side. I knew I wasn't 100% ready for every position I went to,
Mhm.
but I did my due diligence. Like I got ready. I can plan for everything, but I planned for as much as I could, and then I learned as much as I could. Um, and then wherever I struggled, I was very honest with myself, and I was very honest with my leaders, saying, "Hey, I'm struggling with this area." I didn't just try to figure it out in a vacuum, because that's not going to help me. It's going to take me longer. And so I was always ready to say, "Listen, this is an area where I'm struggling and I need help. I need guidance. And how do I do that?" So having those type of conversations and learnings that you can leverage to the next, and to what you said earlier, is transferable skill sets. In
Yeah.
every position I was in, I took one or two transferable skill set, and I tried to perfect or get to a high caliber level, so
Mhm.
that I have that perfected. Now I can move on to the next set of capabilities or skills that I need to kind of work on myself. So that's how it was. But yes, everything was not, rosy, or, bright shining, sun. There were days where it was very difficult.
Yeah.
And in those difficult days, something that kind of, there was a person I didn't mention in my earlier intro, because I also served as a spiritual leader in some of the churches here. And it
Mhm.
was because I had a really strong spiritual mother,
Mm.
Mimi Mogus. For those of you who are in Atlanta, hopefully most of you know her, because she raised a lot of the youth here in the church. And so in those moments of struggle, I know if I'm alone, any one person that thinks about these things in a vacuum is just
Mhm.
going to drive you crazy. So whenever I needed spiritual healing or opportunities to kind of, get re-energized, Mimi Mogus was always there. And whenever I hit something really, really difficult I did not know how to overcome, I would call my mother, just to
Mm.
remind me of where I came, and how far we've come as a family, so that I don't let that one setback take away from everything else.
Yeah.
So my mother was there. And then other areas would be just different, mentors that I've had throughout my life to help me overcome them. So for me, it was all about that. It wasn't about the challenge. For me, I always focused on the process. Like, how am I going to grow out of this? How am I
Mm.
going to get better out of this? How can I come out a little bit more informed, and
Yeah.
not focus on the failures? And I think that's what a lot of other people who have potentially reached certain level of success. Yes, there's some luck, but it's also because that persistence, knowing how to just overcome these challenges, and that is a part of the growth process, right? So
Yeah.
something somebody said to me recently is, where you grow and where we are built is between the lines, and not at the end of the race. So for
Oh.
me, I try to remind myself, okay, this didn't go. I've had some projects that didn't go well as much as we expected, because these are multi-million-dollar projects. But what did we learn? How do we take that level of investment and energy and education and take it on to the next project? So for me, it's that process of learning when I'm between the lines, because at the end of it, the race is done. Okay, great.
Yep.
That's not the goal. The goal is not to just win the race. It's the learning and the journey in that process in between the line.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. First and foremost, your mom did a great job. You should tell her after this, like she did a phenomenal job, because it's not easy, right? And the fact that you even felt comfortable, right, that you had the relationship that you did with both of your, your biological and your spiritual mom, to lean on them in those times of like, yo, this is difficult. And what you were saying, I was like, yep, you stayed rooted, and you stayed
Yeah.
close to what keeps you grounded, because when you are on the journey, it's very easy to like, it's, like when you're a racehorse, or if you've seen horses that race, they put blinders on them so that they only focus on going on the path, right? And sometimes when you do that, you block out everything else, right? And sometimes it's good, you need that focus, but that also means you block out all your love and support too, because you're so hyper focused and hyper vigilant on that one goal. And then what happens, like you said, when you reach that end line, well, what else is there? All
Yeah.
right, you're done. Well, cool, great. Like now what? Like
Mhm.
you're gonna look up and it's like, well, you were doing that for whatever reasons you thought you were doing it, but you left the rest of your life behind. And that's really what you needed to make this journey worth it. You know, that all that hard work and sacrifice is worth it because there's people that you love that you get to share that with. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
awesome.
So
That
I
is
love,
phenomenal.
yeah.
I want to make sure I didn't forget this either.
Hmm.
Is I've been very blessed to have both strong males and female uh,
Hmm.
leaders and mentors that I can rely on. Like again, my wife is another one of those, a strong person in my life that's very pragmatic.
Yeah.
So she has like a very simple way of like analyzing situations and saying it's okay,
Yeah.
share the paths, right?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that she's also a part of that small circle of influence that
Hmm.
helps me overcome some of these circumstances or challenges. And I really encourage all of you to identify who those individuals are. Like you
Yeah.
really have to have a strong person around you that's going to help you in the different areas, whether it's spiritual, whether it's at home, whether it's parenting, whether it's a sibling, a friend, whether
Hmm.
it's somebody that's many years down the path in your career aspirations, or a person that randomly came into your life but became a guardian angel. And I want to share this, I want to highlight this person, right? And
Oh
the
yeah.
reason why I'm purposely bringing up some of these people into the conversation is to allow people to know you're not going to be able to do this alone. You
Mhm.
have to stay connected to the right folks. So when I was really young, and this kind of ties back to dreaming based on limited information, there
Yeah.
was a gentleman named David Collen. So he was a strong. He was a business person here, very spiritual connected as well, but very accomplished.
Mhm.
And he hosted like training, and he owned like a financial management company, financial
Mhm.
holding company. Um, and so he used to go to this one university and teach like middle schools on certain subjects.
Mhm.
Some way, somehow, we got connected and he got to know our family and was just like, okay, 100% invested in us. What I loved and what he used to do, and I hope all of us get to do this for others on our journey, is he would just come to our house, pick us up, and because we grew up in the projects when we were in Erie,
Mhm.
and he's white affluent leader. And so he would just teach us different things, show us different things, drive us to different neighborhoods, things that we didn't see yet.
Yeah.
Or he would take us like on a road trip and kind of highlight, this is what New York looks like, Boston. And he would just take us to these big areas that we can kind of think about. So that was another individual along the journey that
Mhm.
gave me a different lens to look
Yeah.
at different ways of understanding what success means. So find those people that are around you that can give you these different lenses to view life and experiences through, and that's just going to equip you so much more than you can even imagine. Because when we're younger, we think we know everything for the most part, and we're older. When we're older, we do the same thing as we age too. So that doesn't go away, just so you know. But the sooner we can humble ourselves and get to a point where we just don't know everything,
Yeah.
it's going to be a much easier journey for us. Because no human being knows everything, right? We know maybe less than 1% of the world's knowledge, and that's okay. That's a humbling thing to know, as powerful as our brains are.
Yeah.
We're just limited in our knowledge, and the sooner you can realize that, then you build self-confidence, right? Because you don't rely on others to define you as a person. You can start to define yourself, and that's a core value of mine, is learning when to say I don't know,
Yeah.
and that helps a lot. So find who those people are that can fill the gaps of things you don't know.
Man, no, that's beautiful. And it kind of brought me back to something else you said in that answer was about learning lessons, right? And I say this all the time. I was like, I don't take L's, I learn lessons.
Mm,
You know, that's the rapper in me always trying to like, spit a bar. But it was like, there's so many sayings, right? Like it's either a blessing or a lesson. That's something that a lot of spiritual people will say, right? It's like
mm,
you're either going to get blessed by this, and it's going to be whatever, whatever it is, you're going to get blessed by it, or you're going to learn something from it.
yes.
And that's always been my mentality, right? If you sit in the loss and you just sit in there like, oh, I'm like sad, and I'm like, yeah, you're gonna. It doesn't feel good to not win, of course it doesn't, right? But if you learn something, then did you really lose, right? Because like you didn't really lose, like you still had fun playing the game. right?
Mhm.
You got to experience something new. You got to try something new. And so I'm always like, it's your mentality, it's your mindset. And what you were saying is like that you had a lot of mentors and leaders who kept putting great mindset into you, right? And get and a perspective, because something else that we don't do is ask for help,
Mhm.
right? And like this has been a running theme for you, is that when you've needed to, you've reached out and asked for help. And sometimes we have too much pride, and a lot of that comes with our culture, that we struggle in silence. You know what I mean? We don't
Mhm.
struggle, we don't say our pain. And then you wonder why you have that same mentality when you go into the workplace or into relationships, because you're so used to just trying to bear it all that you don't ask for any help. And then you wonder why you're struggling, right?
Yep.
And you said that earlier back in the beginning of this interview, just that idea that we're not in this alone, and that the fact that we even think that we are is really the running joke of this world. I think it's the biggest scam that everyone uses, is trying to make people feel alone, right? And trying to make us feel like we're not worthy, or messing with our self-esteem and our self-confidence, and making us feel like, oh, you're an individual, and if you can't get it right, then there's something wrong with you, is a lot of the messaging that we get from society and media. And they spend billions of dollars trying to tell us this, because if we knew it the other way around, would we really be so scared of life? Like,
Mhm.
right? Like, no, we wouldn't. We would probably try a lot of more things. We'd take more risk, right? We'd probably be a lot happier, because we're actually working and dealing with community, and being, in relationship with our loved ones. So I love that you keep saying that, and I hope that people are taking that away, that we're not in this alone. We're not,
Absolutely.
you know, we might, yes, when we pass, we like to say that too, like, oh, you pass alone, right? And when you're gone, you're gone. But even now I challenge that, because there's still people that are left behind that love you, right? So you're not alone in death either, because the people back here are still holding you up. And depending on your faith base, right? I happen to believe that I will be reaching another side, and I will be reconnected with my ancestors, right? And something that happened for me was that recently my grandpa passed, and
Mhm.
he ended up actually passing on the same day that my grandma passed, 5 years apart, right? And I was like, oh, he's not alone.
Mhm.
It makes me emotional, so I don't wanna get all the way in there, but I was like, "He's not alone." You know what I mean? That was like, for me, that was very much divine affirmation. Like, I
Yeah.
was like, "Alright," like, they got each other. And so there's sometimes you can take, you take those lessons, you take those blessings, you
Mhm.
take all of that, and you remember where you're at, and you get yourself back up. You dust it off, you get yourself back up, and you put yourself back in the race. And I love that you you actually talked about how that happens, instead of just saying the cliche lines, because you get the lines, you're like, I don't know what that means, right? Like, so you're, I don't know what to do with that. That didn't help me at all. Like, so I'm
Mhm.
glad that you really laid that out. And I'm wondering too, because we're towards the end now. What would you say? Because you gave a lot of gems, a lot. I hope they really took them down. Would you want to say to your younger self, or to, we've been speaking mostly to the youth here, right? But like, what would you say and tell them as advice on this journey, and maybe some of the things that you really want them to remember from this conversation?
Yeah, that's and obviously I love what you said about your grandparents. Yes, they're not alone. They're now out there looking at you and everybody that
Yep.
they love and cherish dearly. So now they're watching over us and protecting us. That's such, again, a powerful question. It's always difficult to know what you would tell your younger self,
Hmm.
because the first statement is, would the younger self even listen? And I don't
Yeah.
know that. I hope they would. And for those of you who are younger than me, young age of 40 now. What? Excuse me. Excuse me. See,
Mm.
well, turning 40, not quite there, almost. That's what it feels like. Anyways, it's, if you're younger, and depending on where you are, I mean, there's so many things that can be said. I want to start first by this idea of asking, because I love how you summarized it, and it sparked a thought, and I just want to share it before
Mhm.
it leaves the mind. Is, ask when you need it and give when you can. To me,
Ooh.
that's what life is about, right?
Mhm.
To me, that's what it really comes down to, is knowing. when to do one versus the other. Because if we ask too much but we don't give back, then we're not being fair to those who have given to us. So
Mhm.
ask when you need it and give when you can. And even I'm Christian Orthodox, so even in the Bible it talks about it's okay to ask, right? It says, what is it? Seek and you shall find, um,
Mhm.
ask and you shall receive, and knock and it shall open your heart, right? So
Yeah.
these are basic things that we neglect because life is just so busy. So that's what I would start with. The second thing is actually going to be something I recently learned from one of
Okay.
my colleagues. We did a training, and we had Tracy Knight, who is a phenomenal leader. She actually did the when TPN and the forum did our leadership training last year. She came and did personal and professional development for us. And she said something there, and then my colleague gave a nugget. I want to give both to this audience. One thing that she said is that life is a game, right? She said, depersonalize the experiences. Um, Everyone is playing their game and running their own race. So I just thought that was like such a simple but really profound information to share, because when you learn that, you learn not to take things personally, because people around you, or whether it's in your professional, whether it is in your personal, family, religious, doesn't matter. People have their own dreams and aspirations, and they're going to do what it takes to get there, whether it
Yeah.
is to provide for their family, to provide for themselves, just a dream that they've had, and or that's just what they want to attain.
Mhm.
So when you realize that all of us are just running a race, um, and we don't take things personally, then we can decouple and take the lessons that we're learning from that person and what they're doing really well. And
Mhm.
also, when they disappoint us, we don't internalize it. Like,
Yeah.
we're faster to forgive, right? That was probably one of the biggest lessons I had to learn, is when the idea of forgiveness. And we could talk more about that on a different conversation if you want. But the
Mhm.
power of forgiveness is so freeing to the soul, the heart, and the mind. I want you all to practice that, and you start with forgiving yourselves first, and then you forgive others. Um, so I love that idea when she said that, because for me personally, I stopped looking at some of my colleagues and seeing some of the moves that they're making, because corporate America can become political sometimes, and just realize that's what they're doing, and it's okay. Now I can figure out how to adjust, and so that I can be mentally and spiritually always ready. The other thing that my colleague responded back is, and I love this, and I hope you guys can leverage this for your own gain as well, is he said there are four things he looks for in anything he does, whether it is professional or personal or social. He says, one, am I being myself, my true
Mhm.
self? That's rule number one. Do I have to deviate and sacrifice my core values or not? Can you be yourself? And are you yourself in whatever you're doing? Second is, are you learning? And
Mm.
learning, are you growing? Third is, are you earning? Are you making the money that you feel like you're worth? Or are you providing the value that you were expecting to the community? And then the last one was enjoying. Are you enjoying it? So I really like that, because it just kind of simplifies and gives you a gauge on how to evaluate your current circumstances.
Yeah.
So are you being yourself? Are you learning? Are you earning? And are you enjoying? And then you can make any one of those whichever one of those you prioritize more than the other. You still have to have all four. And so gauge that and see if you're able to leverage that kind of thinking, and help you determine what you need to do next. Because if all of them are strong values and whatever you're doing does not give you that, it's time to adjust. Right?
Yeah.
The younger you are, you can adjust faster. So to me, those were some of those things that I would probably tell my younger self to do it a little bit faster.
No, that's dope. That's beautiful because you're really just giving them the keys to being a decision maker, right?
Absolutely.
Like these are the thoughts and processes we need to do. Because the older you get, the bigger the decision is,
Yep.
and it can be very overwhelming. So even breaking it down to be like, well, how do we think about the problem, right, or the opportunity, and whether it's right for us, right? Not if it's right for everybody else. Sometimes you're going to see a great opportunity. It just doesn't make sense for your life. And you're like, you got to walk away from it. Or you don't do this this type of thinking and you take the opportunity and you shouldn't have, right? And it actually makes you miserable because you didn't think all the way through it. So I love that, and I think that's dope. Definitely hope people wrote that down because I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, like like it's really easy to remember things that are numbered for me. So I appreciate that, and that leads
Mhm.
us into our last and our favorite question on this network. Um, at least for the shows I host, we'll see what happens in the future, is what is it that you are hoping your legacy will be?
Wow.
Yeah. I know, right? It just is like a mic drop every time I say it.
Um, that is such a deep question. Let me give an example of corporate America, and
Mm,
then maybe I can answer that as well.
okay.
So as I was growing in my career, and let's say within Recon Iron Mountain, I also wanted to find something that I'm deeply passionate about,
Mhm,
which is the empowerment, the education, and the growth of our people, especially people of color,
mhm,
because we all know it's just a steeper hill for us. As
mhm,
difficult as all those are to attain, it's even more difficult for us. Oftentimes, it's kind of like working against us, if you will, because of the systems that have been designed. So I've always wanted to do something in diversity and inclusion.
mhm,
And the legacy that I wanted to leave behind there is, um, how many Black and Hispanic employees were able to rise and
mhm,
their voices be heard. And how can we change the culture of the company so that it is a part of the company's DNA when they think about DEI and what that means, including the equity component of it. So I joined our employee resource group, and I was very fortunate enough to chair one of the ERGs, and we were able to accomplish those type of things, right?
mhm,
And to me, what that means is that we have given the next generation of minority employees that are going to be coming to Iron Mountain
mhm,
a safer, environment, and an environment that's potentially going to help them grow and find new opportunities and be looked at equally, right? So to me, that was one of the legacies that I wanted to aspire to. And why I want to be in different positions in different spaces is because I've also understood that we can no longer be on the sideline. If we want to make change, we either have to actively do it, or we have to be in the room. And I knew that I needed to be in specific positions and leadership positions to be in the room.
mhm.
Now I have the opportunity to be in those rooms, and then we can leave that legacy behind for those to follow.
Yeah.
So to me, what I want people to eventually remember me for is that I was a father that was ready and always there for their kids.
Mm,
That to me, if I cannot do that well, everything else doesn't matter. Right?
mm,
So for me, it's about that. It's taking care of home, and, um, somebody that was able to provide for his mother in the same way that she was able to provide for me. It may not be equal, but she took care of me, and did I take care of her? I want my identity to be defined by that, whether I did it or not. Um, I also want my legacy, and I always have this thinking and this vision is, it's not, I don't want to be measured by wealth. I
mm,
don't want to be measured, by accomplishments. I want to be measured by the number of people that I was able to touch, influence, and help along the way, whether directly or indirectly. To me, that's what life is defined about. We come here, we learn, we grow, and we're supposed to help all those that are around us as long as we are able to, and provide the same for them. So that is the kind of legacy that I'm hoping to leave behind, is being able to, provide, whether it's just one thing, or it's an inspiration for just one day, or made them smile. To me, like those gestures, that is what to me is all legacy is about. Because I cannot take anything else with me. I cannot take money with me. I've learned that I cannot take any of these materialist things with me. But the hearts and minds and souls that have been nourished or impacted by something that myself or my community was able to, is what I would like to be remembered for.
Oh wow, that was so beautiful. I was getting emotional. I was like trying to keep it all together. You know, everyone who knows the show knows I'm a little crybaby, and I'm proud of it. You know, I'm very proud of it. I fought hard to be able to cry in public. 'Cause it's not an easy thing to do. And no, it was very touching because I think anyone who has been, you know, listening throughout the conversation might have assumed, right, that you would have said something about mentorship. And in a way, you kind of did, right? But more so what I got from that is like really being of service and like giving back everything that you were given. That you were so blessed and so favored, right? That you had so much love in your life, and to make sure that you leave just as much that you were given. And I think that is so beautiful, right? And that's what's making me emotional because I've I haven't got to interact with you as much, right? But I remember distinctly, and I don't know if people have given you your flowers, and maybe they have, but I'm not privy to those conversations. But you step up, you know what I mean? And you take on a lot and you take charge, right? And you wear the burden, you know. People always say I'm like heavy as the crown. When you want to be the leader, when you want to go first, it's not easy. And when you put yourself out there, but remember to reach back and pull forward the others, that's even greater because how many people do we see go and be successful but never come back to help anybody else do it, right? And so whenever I see someone who does it, who actually like talks the talk and walks the walk, I'm always impressed. And I always am like, I got to tell that person that they're doing amazing and to continue doing it because we need more people like that in this world. And I want to specify too, like, I didn't say this in your intro, but part of my introduction to you was all the advocacy work we were doing right at the beginning of this war, right? And we were in these Sunday meetings and like, what's up? Like, you know, it became the little Sunday crew, like, all right, what we doing? And we're all like running around with like our heads cut off trying to manage life. And it was there's something to be said because there also was a lot of women and then a few men, right? So to stay in that space, right? To take on leadership in such a trying time, right, for all of us, and to do it without asking for a hand clap, without trying to, you know, be the face, with really just genuinely being there to make sure that like we're doing the best that we can, you know, that we're taking care of one another, that you're always a calming voice in the room because sometimes it's not calm. So I want to give you your flowers there because I feel like you are doing what you're saying. Like you've already been planting all the seeds for your legacy. And part of the reason why you're on the show is because when I asked, like, I need more men for this segment, they were like, "Have you didn't call Hayelom?" Like you know, like it was like everybody's. They're like, "No, what are you doing? Like, he needs to be on the show." And I'm like, you know, it's almost sometimes like an oversight because I'm like, yeah, I mean, yeah, he's everywhere. Like, you know, like you just forget. But I was like, no, like this guy has been consistent. I mean, even since like, you know, TPN and Uprooted kind of started around the same time. And it's been like constantly just seeing you show up and show out, right, for community. Also understanding more so now all the other hats that you wear, you know, and you do it with kindness and you do it with humility and you do it with love, and it shows through. And that's why I can be emotional about it because it's genuinely how I see you move. So I wanted to give you your flowers. I'm like, man, I did not plan to be emotional this morning, but I want to make sure that I'm saying those things. So I always tell people I love what you guys created with Tegaru Professionals Network, but I'm even prouder of the people that you are. And that's why I keep promoting y'all. And that's why I keep bringing you on. So, hi, Elam. I just wanted to say thank you for that and give you your flowers. I'm going to catch my breath for a second. So, we're at the end of our segment here. I don't know if there's anything I missed before I close this out, but I did want to give an opportunity to pass the mic to you.
Well, thank you so much for those kind words. There are so many young leaders, elders who have done so much more than me, and I hope they all get their time and their flowers. We need to figure out as a community, how do we edify and raise those voices who are doing the work, and make sure people see them, so
Yeah.
that others can be familiar with them, learn from them, grow, and so on. So thank you for those really kind words. I do want to talk about some upcoming events. I don't know if you've had the
Yeah.
opportunity to hear about them. One, we did close the application process, but we're going to be announcing and doing the scoring model. So TPN has officially started our annual scholarship program, where we're awarding one male and one female a scholarship. And it could be, high school students going to college. It could be an existing college students, or those who are going to trade school. So more to come, more to follow.
Mhm.
And you can learn more about this at our Twitter handle, at Tegaru PN, as these announcements come out. The second one is, this is actually going to be in Chicago, Walla, Tigray, for 2022. And
Mhm.
this is going to be our in-person second time, but this is our third annual for the forum, Tigray Forum, Communities in North America. And that's going to be in Chicago between May 27th and 29th. So you'll see TPN promoting this, or you can follow the Tegaru Forum at our website, tegaruforumna.com, or on Facebook, Tegaru Forum NA. And we'll start to announce more about those events. But I'm really excited to share and highlight that. Thank you also for what you're doing. I think if we don't have spaces like this, it's hard for the voices to be heard.
Mhm.
It's hard for the faces to be seen, and to have, individuals not only who are doing great things, or people who have ideas, and giving them a space. So thank you for doing that. If this is a space that I would have wanted my younger self to be a part of and to learn from, because I didn't have many people that look like me in the space that I grew up in. So thank you for what you're doing. And I hope, your viewership continues to grow and blossom, because we could definitely learn from everything that you're doing. You're independent, you're strong, you're an incredible advocate for our people, and you have these amazing talk sessions that's going to really help elevate and grow not only the youth, but our community at large.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll be working hard back here, so I appreciate that. And yeah, likeness attracts likeness. So we're in the same company for a reason, and I can't wait to just see what we continue to do and grow. And man, like, when we look back at this 20 years from now, 30 years, I'm giving us a lot of age here. 50 years from now, I'm gonna be so excited to be like, I did this, and I can look across and I can see my peers who I did this with, and I'm glad to say you're one of them. So
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. This was a beautiful episode of Black Men Speak Sundays. Make sure you are following us. Make sure you're following Hayelom on all the places he's saying. Yo, this is phenomenal. So thank you, everybody. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you tomorrow for Manifest Mondays. Peace out, y'all.